And today it's the education, the future of Ghana's education, next generation ideas. And to help do justice to this very topic, Dr. Ishmael Niamah Dodo is here. He is an African human development expert and former senior UN diplomat. Niamah Adi is education and social transformation pillar, Center for Social Justice. And we also expect that Dr. Peter Antipate, executive director, Institute for Education Studies, IFES, to also join us here. Gentlemen, welcome and to ZFM.
Thank you very much indeed.
So let me start this conversation this way. 89, I was in class 5. I was going to class 6. Then, I of course, class 5, what will you really know? I was told that I won't go to class 6, but I should go sit common entrance. But I said, no. They said, no, you go and sit common entrance. Because there's a new educational system coming to town. There's going to be JHS and there's going to be SHS. We're not too sure, but we know you, if you sit now, you will be part of this last batch of common entrance or A-level kind of stuff. So I sat common entrance in class 5. Jumped in, went to Achimota School. Never entered JHS because then we were going to be the first batch. So I ended up, rather being the first batch, I became the last batch of the old system.
Yeah.
What prompted my parents and the teachers at the time not to have trusted what was about to happen, for them to say, go through the old one that we are used to? Was there something then? Has that thing materialized? Now, did they see something in 89 that, of course, I didn't know, that has, as their fears, which they had then, has it come to pass? Dr. Ishmael Dodo, I'll do a full disclosure that you are my senior in tech, so I start with you.
No, thank you very much indeed. That's a very thought-provoking question. And I would imagine that this is also a question that will be running through the minds of a lot of people as they begin to look at our current education system. And I'll talk about the essence of education as it relates to human development, socioeconomic development, and the prospects of a country that is visionary to provide solutions to its people. But I guess that, back to your question, the trajectory or the transition that you went through, I would say that when new things are coming, people don't know, you know, a bird in hand is better than, you know,
two in the bush.
Two in the bush that you cannot even imagine that you cannot even know whether you get it or not. So it's out of fear of the change that your parents says, look, we don't know this animal that is coming, and I want you to really try and move to somewhere else. I would say that I was one of the guinea pigs that tried and tested the junior secondary school. I went to Kimbo Experimental Junior Secondary School.
Okay. Before
I went to Accra Academy. And those days, in Experimental Junior Secondary School, you go to, from class 6, you go to Form 1, Form 2, Form 3. When you are in Form 3, you then move to Form 2.
In the secondary
school.
Oh, wow.
Or Form 3 in the secondary school, depending on the strength that you have. But the Experimental Junior Secondary Schools were designed to train you in both the arts and the sciences and the technical skills.
Okay.
So by the time you go to Form 1, you're doing woodwork, metal work, all the things that's associated with life skills. As much as you're doing your maths, English, science, you know, commerce, trade, accounting, everything. So it's a very rigorous curriculum, and it's actually too much for the students.
Oh wow!
Very too much for the students, because we can go to school and sometimes we end classes around 5 p.m., sometimes 8 p.m. And the lecturers that come in are some of the lecturers who are being in universities and so on. So it's a guinea pig approach. And then when you get to Form 2, by the time you move into Form 3, that's when there's a split between those who want to go to technical polytechnics and go and do these HND mechanics and so on, and those who are going to do science. So you come out actually knowing a bit of, if you are in the arts, you know a bit of how to wire your house and things like that. And the vision then by George John Rawlings, and I wrote in his geology, I wrote something about this, that we are matching your education with the economic prospects then of the country. And you recall Jerry John Rawlings had said that he doesn't believe we need a lot more of the degree holders who have done history and political science and so on. We need those who have the life skills that will help us to build the roads, build our hospitals, and it was matching the trajectory of economic prospects with the skills of education.
Okay.
Right. And I think that's where we missed. And perhaps at the time when your parents realized that there's going to transition to JSS and SSS, they do not have a conviction that the curriculum that will be couched under the SSS regime is good enough to make you become the person that they want you to become. So they make that strategic decision. That's what I can only conjecture.
Interesting. Has our educational reforms over the years, what impact has it had on us as a nation? And vis-a-vis what you just said, that the two should have been going together. What we needed, we should have been producing, so that academia and industry will be going on a walk where they are holding each other's hands. What do you need? I produce for you. Has it happened? Has our education churned out what we need as a country? Nyama.
You say yes and no, because if you look at the statistics, we still have not reached the percentage, even in terms of what you want to call grammar school, because you introduced JHS grammar school where you're doing law, medicine, and that stuff of education. We still haven't attained that percentage that is required for the development of the country. Okay, so to that extent, you say that we will not achieve that. But to back one step to the question to Dr. Dodo, I mean, if you look at the time, the 89 that you were talking about, I mean, we're transitioning from the military into the democratic dispensation.
That's true.
Okay? And there was a vision that once you move, everything is going to change because the country is going to attract more foreign investors. I mean, investors are happy to go into democratic country than a military regimes, because then they know in military regimes anything can happen, okay? But then again, if we're going to transition, how do we prepare our people so that they are able to meet that development agenda that we're looking out for? And the aim of the JHS program was not to do away with the grammar school, but so that the artisanship, the craftsmanship that we're doing will be able to have solid qualification, okay? Because if you see a carpenter or a mason who has gone to some level of school, his behavior, his approach to work is different from the one who went strictly through apprenticeship, because he doesn't care. I mean, when you call him to do the work, he'll be sitting somewhere under the tree, pushing draft or playing spy, and he doesn't care at all. So they wanted to regularize that system. And what was required at the time, okay, which I thought was the new thing, which your parents probably were not too confident in, because I mean, the fear of the unknown. I mean, and also to don't forget our parents, then even up to now, still living in that old system mentality. So we want to send our children to Achimota. We want to send our children to Accra Academy because our fathers were there, our uncles were in Achimota, and you want to keep it so that when you are in the house, you can have the conversation around the table and share common knowledge, okay? So that's what happened. But sadly, we have not achieved it. We have not achieved it at all, because if you look at new trends, I mean, where we are now, you can clearly say that we have not achieved it.
The technical mass that we were going to get based on the new system hasn't happened?
No.
Why? What is the state now?
You know, if you look at the state of our economic prospects and how we manage things and how we actually contribute, citizens contribute to the GDP, Now, 77 billion GDP per year will constitute goods, services, and so on. Now, what goes into the services is really around things like import and export, digitization, fintechs, and so on. Manufacturing, which is where education should contribute, is probably less than 10% of the GDP. Because we have a lot of oil and gas, we have the extraction of mineral resources. These are not equalizing. They equalize in the sense that they do not bring individuals into the development prospects, and therefore it is actually some kind of lazy economics that we are using, applying to run the country. Lazy public management, finance we are using. We don't have men in suit, for example, who are sitting down and looking at the economy and manipulating it to produce wealth, which would then result in individuals contributing to it by way of skills that they have in education. So today, we import probably 95% of everything we eat. So has education contributed to this? No. Our unemployment rate is one of the highest in West Africa. Some, they say 25%, but I dare say it's more than 40% of, we don't even have data of how many students or people were churning out into the job market. That statistics is not even so cogently displayed all the time. So there are different varieties to that. We are not doing kind of evidence-based management of the economy. So we sit here and we can conjecture, you look for statistics. So, so the issue is that whatever our education should be doing, there's no evidence that it's doing it. Otherwise, if it does, we will be constructing our roads.
We ourselves.
We ourselves. We will not have a situation where when you are having a building infrastructure, the tiling, the plumbing, the carpentry are coming from a workforce who are coming from other countries, Togo, Benin, and so on, and not Ghanaians. So what have we done with our education? We're talking about lithium, for example, artificial intelligence, digitization. Every year, we have chemical engineers, we have electrical engineers, we have people, computer engineers, and all types of engineers training out from not just University of Science and Technology, my alma mater, but other universities. And all of them, I dare say, 98% of them find themselves working with the banking institutions or other institutions that are into maybe financings and so on.
I did. I did a Greek accounts.
Exactly.
And I went to work in the bank.
Right. So our engineers are not fixing our roads. Our electrical engineers and computer engineers are not actively involved in looking at developing patent solutions around digital economy. Even our mining engineers are not the ones who are actively involved in developing a value chain of a new lithium that we have discovered. So I would say that we are wasting money on our education because we are not developing, we are not using the value of our education to drive our economy to create wealth and prosperity for this nation. This is why we have this huge unemployment situation, and our boys are, boys and girls are just running around and scratching their head. Meanwhile, everything we eat, we wear, is imported, creating the job.
But that's worrying. I mean, this should be a source of worry for every government, that this thing that we're going to do, where we're going to empower our people with the skills necessary to fix our roads, to do this here and there, and everybody does it. So is it that we just go learn theory in school, or is it that we are taught about when we come out, these other places are not paying? But you can't say that as well. If you are a mining engineer, you would get good money. Why are they being... I know someone who did natural resources. He's also in the bank with me. He did some, a lot of Greek mechanization guys who also ended up in banking. What is it that has brought this divide between academia and industry? Are we not being taught well?
I mean, it's interesting, the question, because I do a lot of employment relations and I do recruitments for organizations. I was so surprised when we were looking for artisans. And what was so lacking was carpentry. Because we needed, the employer needed carpenters, the client needed carpenters to do some finishing in a very huge facility, okay, down the road there. And we couldn't find carpenters. I said, wow, plumbers, we couldn't find them.
The ones on the road you couldn't,
if you're doing, depending on the level of work that you want to do and the level of artisans that you want, because they need to understand the drawing.
Of course.
Okay? They need to be able to read the drawing. They need to know where negative and positives are. Not the ones on the road who comes to plug something. You go to work and come home, your room is filled with water, and then you ask them and he tells you that's how it's done everywhere. So that's even the huge failure of the technical education that we're supposed to have achieved. I mean, go to our technical universities today. Accra Technical University, and we have it all over the regions. Except the new regions that you would say we may not have there. I stand to be corrected. The other courses, other than the technical programs, are more. You go to a technical university and the communication administration students are far more than those doing like textile, those doing like plumbing or carpentry and all that. Okay? And they tell you the facility is there, yet it's not attracting students, and they took loans to build those facilities and they need to pay. Therefore, if there are students willing to read business administration, why should they turn them away when carpenters are not coming or masons are not coming? Okay? But what have we done to attract students into that area? Some of us have had the opportunity to live in other countries. And if you call the plumber in London or any other developed country, it comes with pride because he knows that without him, you're not going to have your tap working properly. Okay? Here you call the plumber and, it's just anything. He either comes to mess up what you've done. You don't have a critical mass of good artisans because our school training system has not put them into that position. Why are we attracting those people from Togo? Because their TVET is very strong. You cannot do it without a certification. Here, it is not ensured. If you want a plumber and he comes and he says, I can do it, or an electrician, he says he can do it, what do you ask for? You don't ask for anything. Except the contractor who puts in the tender to make sure that he says, I have the men to do the work. That's it. But when you come on the job, those who comes to do it, you don't ask them for those things. Okay? Yeah. He tells you, I've learned it, I can do it. Try me and see. Okay? And then they end up putting the negative in the positive and putting the positive in the negative. And we blow out the whole house. What you've taught all your life to build. Okay? So it's got to do with the educational system that we've created. And then even when you come to the grammar education, where we say that, you can do the office work, wear suit, and tie and go do the office work. There's huge underemployment there. Because, where you've studied agric econs and you find yourself in the bank, what they only using is your common sense and saying that we can train you on the job to push the papers around and all that. So what happened to the agric econs that you studied? Have we been able to feed ourselves? Go out there to the market today, find out the prices of food products. Drive out of town and then see the stretch of lands there, and you ask yourself, what are we doing? If you compare to a country like Rwanda, which they call a land of 1,000 hills, mountainous land, yet the agricultural produce is so fantastic that you ask yourself, what are we doing here? Tells you that something is not going well. Strictly, something is not going well with policy direction, with implementation. But the worst, and what has made us suffer it more, which we're going down the drain, is the politics of our education. I'm sure if you want us to discuss that, we can go into
What is the politics of our education?
The politics of our education is the mass-free SHS that we have now. The mass-free SHS that we have now.
That's not positive?
Getting people who are capable of obtaining education, but do not have the financial means to obtain it, and government supporting them to go, is very good. It's very good. But how are we doing it? Is it just a thing for everybody? Or we are being very careful in our selection? Okay, part of our educational policy requirements is that every school is supposed to have a counselor, educational counselor. I mean, go around and see. So that right from the basic school, before the child goes into secondary school, you know, in the common entrance system, which we started our conversation with, we all go to secondary school. From preparatory school or middle school, yeah, we all go to secondary school, okay? Even then, we used to have technical schools. So you have ATTC, you have EMIT, you have Kateco, you have those. Exactly. And even in those secondary schools, they are secondary technical. Exactly. So you enter and then you choose to do, because Kateco, for instance, Carnation Secondary Technical, we're doing even pure science as well. Okay. Okay, so you could do science, physics, chemistry, biology there, and you could do your furniture work there as well. Okay. So you enter, and by Form 3, yeah, you would have known which branch to take. Okay. Now everybody goes to SHS. Okay. The technical schools, we've taken them completely separately. The point I want to make is the selection process from the JHS into the secondary school, to have been able to counsel that child, followed their performance, and then even find out their interest, and then maybe their family background, whether he will do well in technical education or grammar education. Okay, but we'll just leave them to it. So a lot, you have 500,000 writing BC or more, no, WASI, the secondary school. And then you have, at a point, it was like 120,000 assessing
free SHS.
No, assessing university.
Okay, I mean, they're going from
university. And you ask yourself, there are over 200,000 that is left behind. What becomes of them? What is the national policy to direct over 200,000 or so every year that do not make it into secondary, into the university? Yeah. Okay, so that's a huge thing. And I say politics of education because it's a populist thing. We're not taking our time to find out. I mean, by now we should have made an assessment of the program and find out whether we've gotten value for money, or it's a thing that we've just put people to go to school for 3 years, and then because they do not pay some 200 Ghana cedi as school fees, we start jumping and say that government has done it for us. You see, that is what is letting us down. And I'm saying that it is so poor, it's so poor an implementation, not a policy. It's so poor an implementation that we just like throwing money into the bin. Okay?
Just throwing money into the bin. SHS is going to push us into it's going to sustain us or maintain us in that traditionally academic society rather than that technical production needed economy that we need to get into.
It will not put us in anything. I mean, compare. I mean, 3 of us were in the old system. Compare now and before, and see whether the value is the same. I mean, I listened to VCA Crab long before he died. No, not long before he died. And he was able to recite things that he has read in middle school. I mean, the literature, the reading was so clear in his mind because you are made to study. You are made to study. Okay? It will not put us in anything because we're just churning out the numbers. And why those huge numbers? Just so that they can vote. They see benefits. I mean, come, let's think about it. Somebody goes to Ridge School. Somebody goes to North Ridge Lyceum. Somebody goes to Morning Star. The fees in those schools are more than the fees in secondary school, even if when we're charging fees.
Of course, yeah.
They are far more. And then you tell the parent who has taken his child to Morning Star School and paid that huge amount of fees. I mean, a term fees there can pay a whole year fees in government secondary school. It goes to Achimota, let me use your school. He goes to Achimota, he goes to my school, Ganata, or he goes to Accra Academy, and you tell him not to pay anything at all. But he has paid it from here. I mean, what's the sense in that?
So he had the capacity to.
He has the capacity to pay. I mean, he's paid for how many years? 9 years. 6 years class 1 to class 6. 3 years into JHS. He comes to secondary school for 3 years, and you say he shouldn't pay. Meanwhile, you have somebody in the rural area who has suffered doc will tell you, walk miles to school, okay, without potable drinking water, without good food to eat, goes to school, go through all this toil, and then you say, oh, when he comes to secondary school, it becomes free for him. When the money that this person could have paid would have helped improve the life of that person there. So by the time they come into the secondary school, they would also have attained the basic levels of quality education. Because when you don't build that basic level very well, that is where you get the problems. And go read it, the OECD countries, Finland, Norway, Denmark, and all those things. I mean, without a PhD, you can't even teach in the nursery school. Because they believe that the foundation has to be solid. But here we say, oh, it just should be anything. When you get to secondary school, it will be fine. And then you say, oh, let's collect 30% from those areas and then mix them up in the grade A schools with the hope that they'll be able to change or do something out of it. But nothing happens.
I think that the issue that Nneema raised touches on the implementation aspect of the policy. Let's be very clear. The policy is a pro-poor policy. Now, when you have a country where poverty still prevails, we call ourselves a middle income country. But if you look at our human development indices, we tell you that we are a middle income country, but behaving or struggling around a poor, a low income country. So, Ghana Beyond Aid ideology has never worked, and we need to understand that. There was the SDG summit that happened recently. We will never attain our SDGs in marks or factors, KPIs that we put for ourselves, because the inequality is very high. I've come traveling probably 50% of the landmass going to the Galamsey site and places which have been affected by Galamsey and water stress. And by doing analysis, you see about 12 million people who are completely out of job because they can't do their fishing, they can't do their, the agriculture, farming, they can't have food to eat. Their human development indices have completely plunged to zero. No health, good health, because they have cancer, nobody is even able to detect and cure them. They don't have drinking water. So we are looking at a country which is really steeped in abject poverty. And we are not talking about it because we politicize things, right? So if you look at free HSH, I think that what is important is, number one, to make sure that there's a free compulsory university basic education. And that at the level of the basic education, which is the GSS level, we need to put in very smart teachers who are seriously endowed, they are passionate, they have the skills and the talent, the capacity to lay the proper foundation for our children. That should not be compromised. At the level of the free compulsory university basic education, whether you go to a public school or you go to a private school, the standard, we have to, as a country, ensure that the standard is the same. This is what Rwanda has done. So the foundation is true. Now moving to the SHS level, right? That is where you have to look at education for what? Because from the SHS level, people are beginning to move into universities where they are tailoring their academic work towards where they see their future. So from SHS, you're thinking if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be whatever. So at that level, by the way, before we move to that level, at the GSS level, we need to have the tracks of the experimental junior secondary school. You have the grammar and the technical at the same time. So when they are moving to the SHS level, they can make the decision.
Okay.
All right, so that that can be split. But at the SHS level, not everybody should be given a free ride. I mean, those who can afford should be able to afford to augment those who sincerely can't afford. Because at this time, there are people who have done very well. Every now and then, with the social movement that we belong to, with the Gandangme, Alliance for Change and communities and so on, every now and then you have lists of people that have done very well at the GSS level, but their parents can just not afford the SHS. Even when you say free, to buy their chop boxes and get their school uniforms, get other things to prepare them to go, they cannot. Now we have free SHS, but students are not able to, kids are being sent home because they cannot have a consistent feeding process for them. The infrastructure has not been prepared for everybody else to come in. So we push everybody into the masses. Yet the economy is not able to generate so much money to be plowed back into the budget of the FSHS. So we as a nation need to really think through this, because why push everybody through, and at the end of the day, they just graduate as SHS, certificate, and they cannot move on to become what they have actually aspired of their lives to become. And you don't have any pathway for them. And like I said, about 200,000 every year who don't have access to universities or polytechnics and so on. What do you do with them? This is where the life skills training becomes important. And I feel that in order for us to move forward, this nation needs to have a human capital strategy.
Okay.
A human capital strategy which really determine the kind of skills that we're going to, and talent we're going to grow for our human capital. Because the world is moving fast. It's moving in a digital era. There's a lot of things that are driving services. And if, as a nation, we want to be very relevant, then we need to grow our human capital in such a way that Ghana becomes the hub where the fine talents can be seen and can be located, so that when there's foreign direct investment coming to West Africa, they will not ignore this country. And so that this country will then determine itself. So okay, in the next 10, 20 years, what kind of country do we want to become? Do you want to become the Wall Street of West Africa? Do you want to become the Paris of West Africa or the London of West Africa, where we move into the high end of the value chain of every economic sector that we are looking at, whether production, manufacturing, industrialization, and the IT sector, technology sector, and then ask ourselves the skills that we want to inculcate in our citizens, and use that to structure the efficacy of our universities.
Okay.
So that they can produce those human capital necessary for making Ghana the gateway for West Africa. But as we see today, we are nowhere behind. And countries like Senegal are accelerating. Benin, next door Benin, is accelerating very fast. Benin is accelerating very fast. If you look at what they are doing with their education system, no wonder to have a fine finesse of a building such as this, you need Beninois to come and do it.
POP. I mean, it's like
you need
this now.
Because they understand the way where we are going. Ghana is beginning to lose its glory in the stature and its stature within West Africa, and it's doing that so fast. For me, I wouldn't even say that is a politics, really. It's leadership. Leadership. We as citizens need to construct the type of leaders that we want. And we need to demand those leaders who are going to occupy power in this country. They need to be people who have the capacity to think critically and strategically, the capacity to have the vision necessary in whichever ministerial sectors we put them, and to drive that vision to be able to attain what we're looking for. So we shouldn't get to a point where in order to be able to occupy political leadership or any leadership whatsoever in our economic sphere, that you might be somebody who must be just oratory or loquacious. You don't need to be able to understand the context in which you are operating. You just need to be able to be connected to political power. And we are teaching our children and setting bad precedents with this protocol system, where somebody who has done very well because it's a poor home, and even though he has A+ in all the subjects, and does not have access to protocol, and the person has aspired to be a medical doctor, he cannot access the medical school because his parents, he has nobody who is connected to politics that can push him. And therefore you have people who go to medical school, and I was talking to a professor who teaches in the University of Ghana Medical School, and said there are students who said, it was my parents who pushed me here. I have no desire to be a medical doctor. This is why people are dying in our hospitals, and some of them don't care. Right? Because we have neglected leadership and have taken on the reins of what I call foolhardiness and uncouth stubbornness to run our country.
I'm listening to all this, and for me it's a bit worrying because, let's face it, when we look at where we are now, plummeting, CD, look at trade deficits, everything shows that as a country, industrialization is the way to go. Yes. Everything shows that. That means that this whole TVET thing that we brought up we must be intentional about solving the problems with education. Yes. But then they are also complaining. There's a tall list. Recently I saw a report where they had listed why the TVET systems are resourcing. We are not well resourced and all that. Why are we not intentional about what we are doing? What is it with us? Is it a mental issue?
No, it's a leadership call. It's a leadership call. Because if you have 10 cities to spend this morning, you have to make the decisions in terms of priority. You have to prioritize your affairs. Exactly. And say that I have 10 cities. What do I do in order to, before the next 5 city or the next 10 city comes in? So that's a leadership call. If you decide to use it to buy credit on your phone and make phone calls, that's it. If you decide you can buy those credit on your phone and use it to read some educational materials that enriches your life. If you decide to give it out to a girlfriend, then so be it. If you decide to buy cocoa and kose, so it's a leadership call. What are your priorities? How have you prioritized your affairs? So that the little that you have is channeled into the most important needs. And we're talking about education and its impact in our education. Let's apply it. Agriculture. We've not been able to respond to the most basic agricultural needs. We have the lands, don't we have them? Arable lands, as they call it. Where is the mechanized agric? We had planting for food and jobs, where we know we're going to get a lot of food and it's going to provide jobs for people. Nobody is talking about it anymore. Why is it so? Go to the market today, there's a lot of watermelon it's in abundance, okay? In 2 weeks or a month from now, you go to the market and then the watermelons are gone. What have we done? The industrialization you're talking about. If we are conscious about the value chain, using education to solving our food and employment problems, somebody must be processing these watermelons by now. It's a leadership call. That will you use that money to build the watermelon processing factory into juice? Contrary to what we saw in social media videos from other countries where they use mixing concentrates and sugar and then we're importing them into billions of dollars into our country. When we have no employment, when we have the land. You see, but nobody is talking about it. That is the misplaced priority. That is why the TVET people will complain of a tall list. Because if we are conscious, if we are intentional, just as the question you asked, you would say that in doing free SHS, a mass free SHS, to people who do not need it anyway, or to people who could afford it, but because you say it's free, it cannot force the money to you. Somebody said if you go to the school and you give them money, they will take it, but that's the most outrageous and preposterous thinking I've ever heard in any time. Because how do I just come and say, this is my fees, take it? There must be a policy to take it, so that I can ask for an accountability of what you've used my money for. You could have focused on the TVET schools first, provided them with good food, good accommodation, good workshops, and make it more attractive. Because anytime a Togolese comes to Ghana to do the POP do the plastering boards, etc., etc. He makes money. He doesn't pay tax to anybody. He doesn't own any families here. He sends the money out. You see, usually when we're talking about the remittances from abroad, we don't think about those who come to do things here that also takes money out of our country. Things that we can protect. I mean, you don't prevent anybody from coming. But if you have your people who can do it very well, why won't you give it to your own people? Okay, so the priority is not right. Our priority is not right. That's why today we cannot even feed ourselves. And for me, I find it very problematic because we have our Greek schools. How many Greek schools you have? You see, when you want to solve problems, societal problems, you have to, first of all, compartmentalize them, or segmentation, and then positioning, and then you know where to put your resource to. I mean, if a Greek is our problem, see how much sugar we import. See how much rice we import. What happened to Aveime? What happened to Commander? I mean, it is not a mistake that somebody do. Society must be progressive. So that if I have done the mistake yesterday, and you have the opportunity today, do you continuously point accusing fingers to me when you have the chance to do the correct thing? I mean, all these are Greek schools. They should have been the first places where we put in the resources so that it becomes very attractive. So that students there do not feel that because we don't have anything to contribute to society, we have been dumped here. Okay, so feed them well. Give them all the bursaries that they need, if that's what it takes. And then let them do their Greek for us. Let them solve our agricultural needs. I mean, and I keep mentioning Rwanda. Every junction, every 100 meters, there is a milk shop that you go with your bottle or your gallon and you buy fresh milk. Tell me where in our country are you saying we can't rear cattle here? That you can go, apart from what we have in the shops, in the ShopRites and all these foreign shops where you can buy a gallon of milk. You can even feed the children with milk, with fresh milk here. And therefore they are not even growing well in their thinking. Because what the food nutrients, let's not forget that there's a correlation between the food and the development of the mind. Yeah. And when they don't get it in that levels at early stages, they don't grow the way they have to grow. You get it? Compare our footballers of old and our footballers of today. See, our footballers of old are very well built. I'm asking a guy, and my brother is here. His father was a national team player. I mean, a Black Star Class of Folk. I own a Class of Folk. Okay. I mean, see how they were very well built. Because those times, they were able to eat well and grow very well. Now you have footballers very small. So we even go into competition, we are knocked out because we don't have the strength. I mean, check one England or German player, look at the leg, the size of the leg. Because they get the right food, they get the right hormones. Okay, and so I don't know what we are doing. And it's getting worse. It's getting worse and worse and worse. Nothing is changing. Because if you want us to discuss the new policy, educational policy that the Ministry of Education is proposing now, it's going to get worse from the problems that we have today. And when we get there, we'll discuss it.
Yes. I will be very quick on this issue of why are we here and why are we not doing the right thing. I think for me, two things in addition to leadership, which is complementing to it, two things that are very critical here. It is vision and capacity, right? Vision in the sense that our leadership needs to be able to chart a path for us to say, okay, this is the direction we're going. If you meet any cabinet minister of any kind and you ask them, how do you see the country in the next 10 years? Give me a snapshot to the vision within 2 seconds. If nobody, within 1 minute, if you cannot articulate your vision within a minute, you don't know it. And I dare to say, none of them will be able to articulate their vision within 1 minute because they don't have any. If you are running a poor economy of the countries such as Ghana, where the inequality divide is high, and there's a lot of stress and strain and hardship among the majority of the population. If you run a country where, those who are going to public school are much more in numbers than those who are going to private school. So it tells you that the middle class is very, very small, all right? And so this inequality creates a bit of a tension where you are growing a population of young people who are very hurt, they're very angry, but nobody is talking to them about it. It will only take, someone who will come and ignite this fire, and the whole nation will turn around. We saw that in Senegal recently before they elected a young person coming to power, where the whole nation was erupted into action. Within 2 hours, they have burned shops that belong to the rich people who are associated with France, for example. Right. So what I'm saying is that we need to have vision for where we are going. Now, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and I'd like to take us back to reset our country. First, we need to go to first principles. Where have we come from? We were a nation where the first policy statement of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was, I want to take my people out of ignorance. He didn't talk about grow the economy, he said ignorance. Let's tackle the issue of ignorance. Ignorance, when you unwrap it, we are talking about critical thinking, ability to espouse your expectations in life, ability to be able to say, this is what I want to change, this is the transformation where I want to have. You as a human being, you need to be able to articulate an inspiration for yourself. And Kwame Nkrumah wants every Ghanaian citizen to be able to articulate their expectations and believe that they are capable of meeting those expectations. So if you sit in Nyankpanduri and you say, well, my vision in life is to become a president of the Republic of Ghana one day, then you articulate that aspiration, and that aspiration informs your trajectory of life, your transitions of life, and truly you can attain that, right? This is how vision work in transforming societies. And this kind of conversation we're having today should be the quality of conversation you should have taking place among cabinet ministers and in cabinet meetings. I dare the country to share with the whole nation, I dare the presidency to share with the nation some discussions in cabinet, and you will see how hollow the discussions are. I truly believe, because if the discussions are tough, they will not lead us to where we are today, where we are importing 98% of everything we eat, including chopsticks. Chopsticks. Toothpick, including toothpicks. It is really, really disheartening that a country where we started from meat cottage industries, shoe factories, sugar factories, textiles, paper factories, all types of things that we depend on the people. And that country is today importing everything. If you go to Senegal, you go to Mali even, you go to Burkina Faso now, you can see made in Burkina Faso goods. Here, I saw a rice bag and it say imported by VPN Commodities. It is, so all we do is import the rice from China and they put in our bags and rebag it and put our label on it. So it is a vision. Capacity is your ability to be able to say, this is the analysis of my sector. These are the skills that I need to transform, to get the sector to contribute 20-30% to the GDP growth. And this is how it will translate into jobs creation. And therefore, my proposition is that we need 20 engineers per year in order to be able to help us to have engineering. My proposition is that we need 200 plumbers per year. Then you are actually building a nation. But a situation where all leadership does is attend funerals, attend outdoor ceremonies, attend cocktail parties. Check the duties, the daily duties of any cabinet minister. 89% of them, or 90%, is nothing but frivolous undertakings.
They would say you are being unfair to them.
No, I've lived through this system. I've worked in the UN for close to decades, right? I have worked with government.
Of course.
And I know exactly what they do on a daily basis, managing their political offices. And I dare say that the frivolities in this country And I'm saying this very hard because we are going to elections. And as a citizen, I really want to be very unequivocal about this, that it is extremely important that we hold our leaders accountable. We are paying them to think for us, to meet our needs and aspirations. We are paying them to have that capacity to do that. We don't pay them to attend funerals. We don't pay them to attend outdooring ceremonies. We don't pay them to become prouding themselves as honorables on the street, on V8 cars, and do nothing. We are not paying them to be insensitive to our plight. We have come to a situation where everybody is hungry. Everybody is hungry. And there are places where they have to bath with 2 bottles of water. And they are giving birth to children with no limbs and so on. We have come to a situation where the budget for your education is not there. And so you have to have a break for 6 weeks before you go back to school. No, come on.
Dr. Ishmael Niamanodo, former UN diplomat, also an Africa human development expert. He's here, right here in the studios of Zen 101.9 FM. It's a round table. We're discussing the future of Ghana's education vis-a-vis where we're going as a nation. Now, I want to find out from my an honorable roundtable guest the new educational reforms. Kindergarten, primary school, JHS, SHS shall all be described as basic school. JHS 1, 2, and 3 and SHS 1 shall now be referred to as basic school 7, 8, 9, and 10. SHS 1 shall now be BS 9, basic school 9. All students in JHS 1 to SHS 1 shall run a common core program called CCP, which comprises of 9 subjects: languages, science, RME, a standalone subject, physical and health education, not examinable, career technology, social studies, computing, creative arts and design. A new examination called National Standard Assessment Test, NSTAT, looks like the ones that we used to write when we left campus, shall be conducted at primary 2, 4, 6, and JHS 2. BC shall be replaced by placement exams at JHS 3 to enroll students into SHS 1. Students in SHS 1 shall continue to run the core program for 1 year. That students into SHS 1 shall not select science, business, or arts. At the end of SHS 1, students will write common core exams. At SHS 2, students will now have to select either a career-related program, which include vocational and technical programs, or a high school diploma program such as science, business, arts. This means elective subjects shall start in SHS 2. WASSCE shall be replaced by a university entrance exam at SHS 3. Students, after successful completion of SHS 3, will be rewarded a diploma certificate instead of a WASSCE certificate. I've tried to summarize everything.
It's a whole lot of confusion. It's what the guy will tell you, potong potong. You know potong potong?
I know potong potong.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing they've done there. See, the preschool, what we call the preschool, it's not curriculum based. The curriculum based school that we have here, the curriculum based assessments that we have in Ghana starts from primary 1. Okay, so from nursery, daycare, nursery, kindergarten, it's not curriculum based. It starts from class 1. But what do you even do far back at that level to make sure that the children from that level are getting that proper mentoring and proper guidance far back at that level? And we're saying that is what the OECD countries do. I mean, the OECD, yes, countries do. The Scandinavia, Finland, Norway, so they have the best preschools in the world. It is at the university levels that then you move to the US and then the UK and those other places, okay? So How are they doing it from that level on? And you see, what fascinates me with the new program is that now JHS is going to move from the schools that they have now, like we did in common entrance. You go from class 1 to, depending on which school you go to lower Cs and upper Cs, and then you write your common entrance, class Cs and post Cs, as we call it. We used to call it. So that's the kind of thing they're going to do now. Then you go to Form 1 for 6 years, like we did Form 1 to 6th form, lower Cs, upper Cs. So the 6 years, look at it. Infrastructure challenge. The numbers we have now, we do not even have the space in the schools for them. That's why we're running the traffic light system. Some have to be in, some have to be out. Okay? So now if you're going to make it 6 years continuous, how do you regulate the numbers that enters there? So that for 6 years, you'll be able to contain all those CCS in school. You understand me, Mr. Ma'am? So that's it. How are you going to do it? When the entry process, you say it's a continuous assessment. Don't forget the F-Cube, the Free Compulsory Universal Basic Education, this is what we call the Senegal Accord, that we signed on to, was up to the JHS level, which is even enshrined in our 1992 Constitution, that 2 years after coming into being of this Constitution, this is what it should be. So that's up to JHS level. And then on a campaign promise, don't forget, even before there, still Article 25 of our Constitution still talks about progressively free education. Yeah. Why should it be progressive? Because you cannot have quality education when the ingredients necessary to have that quality education is not there. And what is it? Material resource and then the human resource. So material resource, you have the classrooms, you have the textbooks. Human resource, you have the teachers. Okay? So you cannot have a mass, because at every time there should be the material resource and the human resource capable of guiding the students into the qualities that we want. And don't forget, the teacher-student ratio is very important. Okay? That's how come, even way into our universities, lecturers are not able to do continuous assessments anymore. They put in 1 exams, that's it. Because if you give him 200, 300 students to teach, and he has to give them full assessment to do, how would he mark it? The workload on the teachers at the secondary school level, check it out. Check the classroom, how many students are in the classroom. Check the dormitories. And you know, some of our schools, which we have described as so prestigious, we know the students are putting the mattress on the floor to sleep on. But when you come out to say it, it becomes a dent on the image of your school. Exactly. So you have to keep quiet. Meanwhile, it's not leading to the qualities that we want. Okay? So that's 6 years that they're going to do, unless they tell us the selection criteria into the secondary school, where we will know that the number of students entering will be in consonance or in ratio to the human resource and the material resource to ensure quality education. Is going to be a worse situation than what we even have now. Okay?
You know, my discussion, you know, what I would say about this, the new reform, I mean, reformation is a process. Now, when you're doing a reform, you are aiming to transform an existing situation. Exactly. You know, that, and you are able to count, you are sort of charting a path towards the future of where we want to go. And a future must be an expected end, right? But what's happening today with what the reforms is starting to discuss, we are starting to discuss, is that what they are telling you is that you come and meet the person is ill, is hungry, is very weak, he's in tattered clothes, and you come to him and say, well, you know, I'm going to give you a future of you know, a nice house. You begin to dream, get the person to dream of, have unrealistic goals and dreams, and you are forcing the person to think through the dreams you are offering them, even in the midst of being very sick. Mm-hmm. This country is in a mess. The educational system is completely in a mess. Before you start a reform, the first thing to do is to have an extensive consultation with everybody, citizens and stakeholders alike, to try to ask ourselves very critical questions. What are we doing well? What are we not doing well? What needs changing? This discussion process is very fundamental and critical to every reform. Before you even start to think about what the constituent of the reform should be, that has not. So for me, I will not even start talking about the architecture or the key elements of that reforms, which has to do with what a school should be called, what classes should be called, and so on. I'm very familiar with what they are proposing. Listen, if you take the U.S. system, educational, public education system, and you replace the word by word, with Ghana and put this in word, you get it.
You think we've gone to?
It is an omnibus placement of the U.S. education system on the Ghanaian. My children, I've been through that system. Grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, NASAT, all these things. And as we were reading, I was just laughing in my mind that even in our own educational reform process, we would take an omnibus educational setup of a foreign country, an imperialist country, and impose it on our country without dealing with the fundamental questions of infrastructure, dealing with the fundamental question of the quality of our teachers. With all due respect, I would not want my children's children to be taught mathematics by a mathematics teacher who failed in school, failed his mathematics in school. I'm not saying that this is what happens all the time, but if we want to change this country, there must be a sense of having a very courageous conversation. And I think we have become a society which lack courage. This country that I knew before I started my travels, in the last few years I've been here, since being on sabbatical, we have become a country where we lack the courage to speak the truth. We have schools where teachers are struggling to teach mathematics and English because that is not their core subjects. And in fact, when the teachers themselves were in school, they were failing those subjects. And here we're asking them to go to Ayalolo school, go to schools in Abelenke, go to the public schools in the Gadangme community. Teachers are struggling to help themselves. You have not addressed those fundamental questions. And you are imposing a curriculum on people. Look at the infrastructures that we have. If you go to Hausa Gomi, here in Greater Accra, the people that contributed their land for the formation of the Republic, if you go to the cluster of schools, they lack toilets, sanitation facilities, the roofing is all leaking. Girls don't go to school because they have menstrual period. We have all kinds of challenges. And instead of coming from the basics to really accept the fact that we have created a mess and we need to get out of the mess and ask citizens how we get out of the mess, you have gone to take a curriculum from the United States, omnibusly so, and impose it on us as our fundamental reforms. How
is it addressing our needs? I mean, we are sitting here talking about agriculture.
NACA brought this thing up.
What is NACA? They are saying that they were not consulted. NACA, no, there are other stakeholders.
Yes.
NAGRAT and all those other stakeholders. Yeah, they are saying that they are not consulted. But if they are the people to teach and they have not been consulted in what is being proposed, then who proposed it?
This is not the way to do reform. The word reform, reformation, newly forming, requires a process of critical thinking. A process where everybody that matters, including parents. And that consultation must even be done in Gadangme, in Ewe, in a major dialects. So people will understand it. I mean, I started my education from St. Mary's Anglican Primary School in the public school near Akotolanti, in the Odododio constituency.
I was taught English, mathematics, and science in my local language, Ghana, in order for me to appreciate it, understand it, before they introduced the English language. This is how I was taught. And I went to Kimbo Experimental Junior Secondary School before going to Accra Academy. By the time I went to university, I was so grounded that I could graduate with a first class honors. And when I went to Oxford University, I was so grounded I can adapt. Now, I would imagine that without this foundation that I had from Bukom, I could find myself working with the United Nations in executive or executive general. Who would have thought that somebody from Bukom could do that? The benefit I obtained from the educational foundation at the time I was growing up. Mind you, at the time there are those who were doing common entrance and their parents had the money to take them private school. My parents don't have that money. Oh gosh, I have to go and sell Katamanto, Akwasiadraso in order to raise money to buy pen and pencils to go to school. In spite of that, I was able to build resilience by God's grace to get to where I am today. It means that there's a path that is best practice for this country. And that path is listening to the needs of the citizens. Listening to those who are the beneficiaries of education. Listening, trying to understand the cries of the poor people at Nungwa Pram, who could not afford mathematical sets to write their exams on Monday. Addressing those fundamental issues, the place of schooling, the infrastructure, dealing with the basic things before you start putting nomenclature on things and tell us NSAT and all that. How ludicrous. And I think it's ludicrous. This is, in a reform process, this should be the last thing that should come to us. We don't need nomenclatures as a basis to solve our problems. What we need is quality education that will set critical thinking for the people. And that quality education is embedded in an environment that will enable you to think, enable you to learn. Do you think you can go to a cluster of schools at Korle Lagoon area to study? Have you been there? If you see the filth around the students, is that the good quality education you want to give to our children? So you have a situation where you bring the Morning Stars and Achimotes and everybody together, and you say grade A, grade B, let them mix. By the way, the mixing of the Bs, when you don't find them, the grade As will replace it. We are creating a society of haves and have-nots. And the haves will be 3% and have-nots will be 97%. If we don't take care, by the time you and I are 90 years old, this country will erupt. We cannot contain the fire. Because when people feel that their future is not guaranteed, simply by some of these imperialistic tendencies of stupid politics.
Oh, wow.
If people continue to feel this hopelessness, then we are running a country which is not managed for the benefit of all aspirants of societies. We are running a country where only a few people are actually the beneficiaries of it. And we are setting our children up to be fighting each other.
Talking of the new curriculum, let's not also run away from the moves to ensure that this is enshrined, and there is a move by Parliament, which for some reason, which I found strange, the Parliamentary Select Committee on Education, the NAGRAT told them to reject the free SHS bill. I thought, why? What is wrong with instituting the free SHS bill?
It is already in the Constitution. There is no need. You see what they've done in that new bill? It's trash. Complete trash.
Oh.
No, it's complete trash. I don't know whether they were paid or they did it for free, but that thing should not be accepted. Anyway, no, because what I'm saying it. I mean, I studied education in Liverpool. So let those who said they did it bring it on the table and let's discuss it. If they know it better than us, I'm fully certified by it. So I'm not talking as a layman or out of the vacuum. I studied education. What they're doing lacks every necessary ingredient to be called a better educational system. The Constitution has it already. Progressively free. Why should it be progressive? Because those things, those ingredients, I mean, that's why I say it's potong potong. Because, I mean, you want to cook palm nut soup or groundnut soup. Are there no specific ingredients to prepare those soups? I mean, or you just throw in anything and you tell me what name do you give to it? It's potong potong. Because it's just anything. You see, so they have to, you see, and what they are doing is just to throw dust in the eye of the people. So that if the minority says no, as Nagrat is advising, then they go out there and tell the people they want to cancel your free SHS. So they don't want to pass it. You see, that is the bait that they're setting with this. Meanwhile, this thing is empty. Completely empty. Because see, we started our conversation this morning asking how education is answering our needs as a people. And we say 98% of the things that we are consuming are all imported, including toothpick. Okay? So why don't we have an education that addresses the needs of the people? I mean, after all, what's the essence of education if it does not answer the basic needs of the people?
I would make it more futuristic, that, you know, the essence of trying to make things work is for the benefit of the people. Now remember, democracy is governed for the people, by the people, of the people. So truly, we have to have a national discussion, a national debate about the type of education that we want to have. We need to have a national debate about our human capital strategy, the type of human capital that Ghana want to have, of Ghanaians, linked to the critical sectors of the economy that will drive us in the next way forward. Before we start talking about educational reforms, we need to ask the question, education for what? Because it is not, and this bill doesn't answer that question. I mean, nobody has been consulted in this. If you go to Katamanton and meet the women who send their children to school, do they even understand that somebody is taking a decision for them in Parliament? Are the parliamentarians holding stakeholder forums in their constituencies, talking to the people about these educational reforms? Do the parliamentarians themselves understand these educational reforms? No. All right? Now, does the Minister of Education himself, does he really understand the implication of what he's putting on the table for the future of 5, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years of our country trajectory? Is he convinced that by this, he's actually taking the young person from as far north as the northeast, Wuchiang, to somebody at Bukom, to be able to say, by going through this educational mill, I could also become the lawyer that I want to become, or the engineer, or the carpenter that I want to become? These are simple but critical questions that we need to answer. And my point is that this is not educational reform bill. It is nothing short of anything moving for transformational change. It is a political expediency, and I think that we need to devote away from that. We cannot politicize something as serious as the education of our children. We cannot. Now, I said futuristic because the world is moving very fast. The dictates of the world requires that in the next 20, 30 years, any foreign direct investor who wants to invest in any part of the world would have a human capital of which 60% would necessarily come from Africa.
Okay.
Now, the question we need to ask ourselves as Ghanaians is that how much of the 60% do we want to control? Now, West Africa economy is going to be 1.3 trillion economy, which is going to be converted into all types of goods, services, and so on, engineering, all the sectors. Could it be that we will train our people that will be able to export talent to Liberia to construct their roads and be paid foreign direct, and be paid forex? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it is for us as a country to think about what we want to become.
But in this direction, we're sending nurses outside, right? No, okay, maybe not we. They are going. I mean,
By themselves.
by themselves. So,
And who benefits?
you know, so it means it is doable that if we had some good education, we would have produced human resource that we can exploit.
Look at India. This is how India is making money, and this is why I feel that I said that we lack vision and capacity to manage our country, because if you're a finance minister, for example, granted that we import 90% of some goods and services, of commodities, right? Now, what prevents you from taking a chunk of the money, right, to create standby letter of credit and engage in trade so that you make some more money and put the money in education if you lack the money? In other words, what I'm provoking is we should not just get money from our natural resources, oil and gas, and then we start spending. Whatever money we get, we must be able to create more money, more wealth out of it. And we can do that smartly. But strategically, positioning ourselves with the private sector that is growing. What prevents Ghana from owning 40% of MTN in this country? Why? What prevents us from doing that? What prevents us from being the exclusive owner of a lithium plant that is going to come? What have we done with all the money we made from gold to the extent that we cannot invest in exploration of other strategic natural resources? What prevents us from controlling, however we create it, controlling 20% of the 2 million sugar import that is about $2 billion? No, we need to be very careful. So I'm saying that we have lazy managers of our economy, lazy managers of our economy. And I'm saying that without meeting words. Because if we are not lazy, we will find avenues for creating innovative financing to run our country. And I'm saying this with such passion because we are talking about the future of our nation. The future of our nation. We need to, by this time, we should be a country where no child, no youth should walk on the street with the mental incapacitation, stressed, anxious about their future, begging for money on the streets, crying all the time, in spite of having first-class honors from a university. I met a gentleman who was cleaning the toilets in Kotoka International Airport. And the way he was doing it with finesse, I realized that no, this guy has some level of sophistication that the others don't have. So I engaged him and said, "Did you go to school?" He said, "Yes, I did chemical engineering and I had first class from Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Should we as a nation have our chemical engineers with first class honors cleaning toilets in Kwame Nkrumah and Kotoka International Airport?" Now, this is the courageous conversations we need to be having as a nation. And I'm intentionally putting this on the table, with all due respect, because we are moving into a moment of elections. And these particular elections, in respect of which direction it goes, is a watershed moment for this country. Why I'm saying that? Anybody who has been connected with a constitution from 1992 is either dead, ill, incapacitated, extremely old, and has no future in the next 5 years. Well, I don't know where the law.
Yeah, I mean,
so we're talking. So we know the age of our president, for example, and therefore, it's a recharge of new ideas, new people, young ideas into the next. By 2028, we should be organically developing leaders who are astute, who have common sense, who have passion, who are citizen-oriented, people-oriented, who can take our country to the next level. And therefore, we need to get rid of this toxic, stupid politics we have in our nation.
The word stupid has come up twice.
Yes. And it is not an insult. It's a description of the stark situation in which we are, that we need to courageously call it the way it is. Because if you look at the situation we are today, what kind of leadership are we creating? What precedents are we taking?
Talking of leadership, one of the things that should worry each and every one of us, if there is a current educational reform in the works, but the biggest opposition party, who always have a chance of coming into power, the flag bearer has said that he also has his own top 6 to-do list for the education sector if he wins the elections. He said that in April. Some of the things he's saying are not in this. So what if perchance he comes, he throws off this whole educational policy, and what
I mean,
is
this whole educational policy, I'm telling you, is just a bait. The whole idea is that this is what we want to do. These people say it is not good, and you and I know, we seated on this round table knows that anything, the content of that thing is not good. So once you say it's not good, then they go out there to our people in our mother tongue and throw it to them with all those gymnastics and say that, hey, they don't want you to go to school again, therefore don't vote for them. And that is all what it is for. Because, I mean, how do you, tell me, how do you, by any strand of imagination, say that you want to expand education without infrastructure? Don't we have the e-blocks sitting uncompleted? How many are still there? I mean, we travel around the country. We saw some of the buildings. And we all know that anytime school is set up in a community, it opens up that community so quickly. Yeah. I mean, go ask those people, University of Ghana, before he came there. It was a place for wild animals. Now, it's the most expensive place to acquire land. I mean, go to Central University in Miocho. Go to Ashashi University in Brekusu. Anywhere a school is established, quickly it opens up the community. So if you want to expand the country, I mean, if you are futuristic, if you want to expand the country, then the mistakes of having to break down existing buildings with so much money, huge millions of cedi, only to leave us with a hole costing so much, the most expensive hole in the world, tells you that there's no thinking in leadership process. And that is what is reflecting in the bills and some of those things. I mean, those are some of the paralysis that we see in the decision that is made. I mean, equate this bill that you have to the building of the cathedral. They will just spoil things, put in money, and then leave it as it is. That is equally, I mean, this is the thought process of what we have in leadership. Talking about leadership paralysis. Because travel around the country, I mean, travel to elsewhere. I mean, if you leave Accra, okay, if you leave Accra, there's no real major national monuments to see outside Accra. So that if you want to see Kwame Nkrumah Mausoleum, you have to come to Accra. If you want to see Parliament, you have to come to Accra. Black Star Square, you have to come to Accra, everything. So what happens to the other parts of the country? Shouldn't we spread up so that somebody comes here and he says, oh, I want to go all the way to this region because there's a national cathedral there that I'll see. And then it opens up the whole country. Shouldn't we build schools across so that it opens up the whole country? Must everything be centered in a small place? So that is the leadership paralysis we're talking about. And you see, give me 1 second to talk maybe the last point on the new bill that they are proposing. The new bill that they are proposing, again, is not fit for purpose because you cannot take it outside Ghana. I mean, you and I, all of us seated here, did common entrance. Common entrance was a West Africa-based exam, so you could finish your preparatory school year and immediately enter secondary school in Nigeria. O-level could take you all the way everywhere in the world. So was A-level. Now you are doing things that you are calling what you are calling. It means that when a child finishes school in Ghana and he attempts to seek foreign education, how well is those qualifications going to synchronize with entry qualifications into those other countries? You want to compete globally.
You see, that's a very fair point, because with the West Africa Examination Council, it's West Africa Examination Council. It's been there for how many years? Over 50, 60 years? Or maybe, I don't know. Yeah. But then, if you change curriculum, you send it, I remember that there's, there was one time I was asked by Oxford University to evaluate some of these degrees for acceptance to the university, because they've checked out the university and they know that the gentleman, they did an interview, is very smart, and they want to offer him the scholarship, but they're not sure of the school. This is what we are competing against.
Let's come back to the former president, saying he would also take a second.
I'd like to answer that question.
Yes.
I think that, look, what I will encourage the body politics to do, and
both
the MP
divides.
And what I will encourage them to do is to encourage a national discussion about education system, its reforms, the content of the reforms, and guide and structure a process that will make sure that all stakeholders, students themselves, parents, teachers, funders of educational systems, all of them will come together to be able to look at these things holistically and come out with something that is very national, very acceptable by all ranks and file. And in that sphere, whatever ideas the NDC have today, because they could become the leaders,
the next government,
mm-hmm. should be able to pull that on the table. And whatever the fine ideas the MPP have today, based on the experiences of
the free SHS, what they've gone through,
they should also come back today. And then allow technocrats who are dispassionate, who understand this thing, to guide us. We can see ideas from in foreign countries, how they worked. I would propose that we even seek ideas from Germany about how they structure the education system such that the manufacturers of the education system are the nation builders of the country. I'd like to get ideas from the Nordic countries, the Norwegians, the Swedes, how they handle, their free education system. And get people to think, how do we grow the economy, putting education at the center of it, so we have adequate resources to resource the educational system, and then bringing entrepreneurs to it, the kind of skills they will need to have, so that all this will inform the structure of the educational policy.
You think this one is not cooked well enough?
Oh, my brother. But 6 months to elections, my mother, who has grandchildren who are attending schools, she's very interested in the education reform. She's not been contacted. All the Makula women. Are you saying that 3 to 5 people who sit in their room drinking whiskey to write educational policy, to bring it to us? No. Let's be very courageous. And I'm being sarcastic here. I'm sorry for saying that. But are you saying that all the wisdom is in their heads and they can think for the rest of the people? No. The writers of the reform paper may have a good heart, but their consultants were paid. They have interest to deliver and take their money. We have interest that whatever comes must be fit for purpose. It must be able to address our needs and aspirations. It will serve everybody well.
I'm going through what the former president said, and for me, it's something that is quite worrying. I emphasize the importance of conducting an educational reform in my first 100 days in office, and the integral role of teachers in national policy reforms. My administration will focus on adopting first language as a medium of instruction from KG to basic 3, and training more teachers in major local languages to facilitate teaching and learning at the basic levels. Is he also not just promising?
No.
Get votes?
See,
it's not promising at all.
Let me take it. See,
why does this make sense to you? Why does this make sense?
It makes sense to me because, see, you are in Accra. Don't forget that you cannot disintegrate people. You are in Accra here, Greater Accra here. Go around all the schools and find out how many of them teaches the mother tongue. They'll tell you there are no teachers to teach it. Okay, so if somebody is making conscious effort, because you communicate to people well in the language that they understand, okay, so that even if the English is becoming difficult, you can use the mother tongue in giving analogies and explanations and all those things for the children to understand. So that is the national consciousness.
But I've told you,
you use yourself as an example.
Yeah, so everything that the former president have described actually describes me, and some of those who are like me.
You learned 1 + 1 in Ghana.
Yes. So once I connect with Enyo, when I see 1 + 1, I connect with Enyo, so I can write 2. There's something about your local language and how it helps you to gain English literacy. I've always pontificated that just the mere fact that somebody does not speak English does not make the person condescendingly illiterate. That person is English illiterate, because a professor from Harvard University who doesn't speak Chinese, Mandarin, if you plunge him into a very serious intellectual debate in China, he's an illiterate.
He'll be embarrassed to the core.
He is an illiterate.
Stark illiterate. Can't speak a word in Mandarin.
Exactly. So come fast forward here. We have let's look at the architecture, the structure of our own employees in this country, particularly in vulnerable communities, remote communities. I dare say that perhaps 40% of them are at the age of 20 and above who have not spoken English. They only speak their local dialect. Now, our education must also target some of these informal sectors and be able to bring them into whatever we are doing, all right? Therefore, our education must be a combination of teaching the English language and the local language. I will share an example of what I did in the Sahel region. There's a place called Menaka, where the Tuaregs are in the Sahelian region. In my assignment, I took donor money. When I arrived there, these are nomads, right? So they have no need, because of the movement, they have no need for building homes,
classrooms and all that. They are on the road.
But because of the terrorist situation, they have lost their original occupation. So they have been become sedentary.
Rather than nomadic.
Nomadic. So there we have to look at different ways of socializing them, creating economic livelihood. None of them spoke French. So we cannot structure a curriculum and teach them in French. We taught them in Tamashek. Veterinary.
Who was the instructor?
We hired instructors. Instructors who have done anthropological studies, and they can teach writing notes in mathematics, even veterinary services of how to inject
the cows. Yeah.
All of them were taught in Tamashek. In the end, we created 10,000 jobs. 10,000 jobs. The population of at the time we started, there was only one person who can build houses in the community of close to 500,000 people. There was no mechanic. If your car spoils there, good luck. Right? But by the time we finished the program of just 1 year, 10,000 people, sophisticated skills, wiring with solar panels, this positive, negative, this, and you see the smiles on their face. A whole community is coming up. And that gives me the hope that we can do similarly here. What we need to do with our reforms is exactly what is talked about. But we need to take care of the 40% I described who cannot read and write in English, but spoke the Twi, the Axim, the Zima language, the Ga, and who are our citizens' workforce, our human capital, young people with ideas but just cannot speak English and write them, and train them with their hands to be the ones who will construct our roads, who will build our buildings, who will repair our rooftops, who can do all those things and create jobs for them. So out of them, then they'll be able to fund their children to get into sophisticated skills. And this must be part of the educational strategy of human capital development. This is what I say, that any country that will succeed in Africa today must have necessarily a human capital strategy. What kind of citizens you want to develop with the sophistication or the skills that is needed for the next industrial revolution?
You see, when we talk about the hollowness of these educational reforms and the fact that it does not encompass our society, it does not speak to the needs of our society, let me give you one other example among the many that we've said. We're building Harbour in Jamestown.
Yeah.
We had a nautical college in Tema because of the harbour, because they have to do the nautical studies and all that. Go there, go and find out what preparation are you doing for the locals, so that tomorrow when you said you've opened the harbour, they are fit to work there. Because if they sit there and you open the harbour and they can't find any work to do there, they'll be agitated.
And they'll sabotage you.
That is the point. And you know that harbour cities are very expensive because the people who trade there have money. You have a lot of foreigners. Go to Tema Harbour, TNC. So the indigents will be wallowing in abject poverty whilst they tell you the millions of dollars that the harbour will be created. Okay? No plan absolutely. No plan absolutely for the people. Yet you show pictures of how the harbour is getting completed and how it will be opening soon. Or You finish, and then all you tell the people, the indigents, is that they should come and sweep the place while they don't get to wear shirts and sit in the offices. I mean, how do you thrive in this society? And these are the things that our education should encompass, should address, so that you pick a place like Jamestown and say that, look, what can we create out of this place that provides proper education and employment for the people? Okay? So you pick the harbor, which they have there, which is going to generate a lot of employment. You have their sports. I mean, we sit here today, there's no boxing champions, world champions that we have anymore. So why don't you collect the people, say, let me design a special curriculum for them. They have their own boxing school, where they learn other things in the morning, and then they spend more time boxing, because that is going to bring us to where we ought to be. Okay? So, I mean, educational development is encompassing. And I'm saying that, look, we have the qualification to do the work. They don't have it. Like my brother said, 2-3 people cannot sit and drink tea.
Whiskey.
Or whatever.
He said whiskey.
Yeah, I'm adding tea to it. And say that they are throwing a bill to us, which is so hollow, which does not address anything. It does not provide us the rice, the millions of dollars of rice that we are importing. It's not answering our sugar problem. It's not answering our toothpick problem. Yet you call it education. Education for what?
In February of this year, Angel Kabonu, president of NAGRAT, had said that the teacher unions in the country have indicated their intention to release their own comprehensive policy document addressing ways to enhance the conditions of service and improve education as a whole. He said the document has been thoroughly researched, and if followed, concerns and challenges in the educational system would be effectively addressed. I know Guta is also putting together a certain policy document that they say they will also engage all parties that want to be running the next government. TUC have already launched theirs.
They have theirs. You think they also thinking about theirs?
Yes. So I'm asking that, should the way be that those who are concerned, the teachers, we were saying that one of the big things is the teachers that you said too, the resources,
the material resources and the human
material.
resources. Yes.
Should this new policy direction, whether it's for this party, the party coming and all that, should it be led by the teachers?
It should be in consultation with them. You see, if you have sat with them, they will not come and say they are drawing their own thing, but they are going to facilitate the program. So in the end, they are like the beneficiaries of it. Okay? I mean, the teachers are passionate. We've all taught before. We want our students to do very well. I mean, the joy of the teacher is when the students are doing very well and are in high places. I'm sure if our teachers are listening to us this morning, they'll be very happy. Say, oh, I taught this guy, I taught him. He's making me proud. You understand what it means? So that's their reward they get. So if you are doing a policy, what you call a policy, that the whole teacher union can get up and say, throw it away, it tells you that it does not resonate with them. They have not been consulted enough. They don't see the depth of that policy that you claim you've written. And I'm saying that it is nothing but political education.
You know, what I...
Final words. We've just about 6, in fact, we have just less than 5 minutes.
Fantastic. What you described there, where all the stakeholders are beginning to come out with their own ideas.
Yeah, that's what I've realized.
You see, it starts from what I said. Any reform process first has to address the fundamental processes of consultation, adequate consultation. The way I would do this, if I was the Minister of Education, is make this a national issue, throw it, and he would have scored political points, and I'm just giving him a free advice. He would have scored political points. And then you throw this, you take it to the markets, to the market women, to the tailors, to the drivers, because they are their children, their children go to school. So they're the parents, and explain to them the vision and the direction of the new educational reform process and what will be required of them, and listen to them to give you ideas, of what they need to do. And all that, you throw a challenge to the NDC, throw a challenge to CPP, nobody, let's sit down. This is a national issue. It's not political. If they have done this beautifully, I am very sure the political point they will score will be humongous. It will address not just politics, but it will put all of us at ease of
what we are going to see in terms of our education. So this will be my advice. My final word is that as a nation, we need to use these educational reform processes to think through what our national human capacity strategy, capital development strategy should be, in ways that will position the nation in the next 10, 15 years as one of the most sophisticated nations who has his citizens skillful in the right places of technology, industry, manufacturing, business administration, financial engineering, all of that, such that any foreign direct investor who has billions of dollars to invest in Africa would never ignore Ghana.
Dr. Ishmael Ni Amano Dodu, African Human Development Expert, former senior UN diplomat, Ni Ama Adi, Education and Social Transformation Pillar, Center for Social Justice.
Am I not having my last?
No, you have your last word. I was coming to you.
Okay, good.
I said you have the last word.
Good. Thank you very much, my brother. I mean, the future of Ghana's education is what I'll call rural education, because there's so much space in the rural areas. I mean, go to England, go to other developed countries. Rural education has the serenity. It has the space. It gives that quietude for proper education. And that is what I did for my studies in Liverpool. So that if they are consultative enough, these are things that will give to the development of our country. Let 2-3 people not sit over tea and whiskey and bring things to us that is not fit for purpose. We don't want it.
Thank you very much. Ni Amadi, you just heard from him. He's an Education and Social Transformation Pillar, Center for Social Justice. It's been an interesting discussion. The future of this country is at stake. The education of the next generation is very, very important. Without the right people coming up, we would not survive in this race. So let's think seriously about what to do. If it is too politicized, we're all in trouble. People, all too soon, the week is up. Z in the Morning is wrapping up for the week. We'll be back next week, as always, God willing. But before we go, as always, let me say this. Pray like it only depends on God, but please, go work like it only depends on you. Jerry Hum, I'm out. Nabol is up next with the 10 a.m. news. After that, there's a new host for NYA The Brands.